guys. Welcome to the Shin podcast. I'm Bala and Vignesh. Many of you might probably be seeing us for the first time on video. So, hey, and this is our 50th episode. It's been quite the journey to reach 50 episodes, and it's been more than a year. We are very happy to present to you this episode, which is a very special interview with a very special guest. A guest who has been in the field of cinema for more than 20 years. He has been a renowned film critic, and he has been a movie maker and writer for more than a decade now. Let us welcome Mr. Sudhish Kamath to this episode and to our Shinpad podcast. Welcome, Mr. Sudesh.
Pleasure being here. Always fun to talk movies.
Yeah. And we've been running this for like more than a year, this podcast, and we've been arguing for almost 10 years, like on a lot of things, the both of us. And we generally agree to disagree on a lot of things. Since we are friends, we are more like, we understand each other. So we stop where when we know to stop and don't push the buttons. But with...
you don't get physical.
Yeah, that's... But with the advent of social media and the discourse about movies going on, and the nitpicking of each and every small thing, how do you see it? Like this barrier is being breached consistently. Like people are not being civil to each other on social media, especially while discuss not only movies, but let us just focus on movies alone.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of aspects to this. First, check. Is my audio clear? Is my audio good enough?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. So the thing is, movie watching now is not like solo experience as it used to be, because everyone's got a phone in the pocket and they feel like they have these thoughts that they want to share. So, sometimes people not only react to a movie frame by frame or second by second, moment by moment, they're also writing it down, and they are passing like opinions written in stone even before the whole thing is over. Because a movie might choose to give you some information so that it's playing with your mind and then completely surprise you by the end. But if you're going to react to it like it's a sport where, he just passed the ball here, and it doesn't work, because a movie is meant to be judged as a whole and not in bits and pieces as it's happening. It's not meant to be done live. So the way we're consuming movies itself has changed. And because the way we're consuming movie has changed, people have started taking their opinions way too seriously, even if they're not paid for it.
Yeah,
it's just that they feel like, hey, they got a thought, so it must be worth something. Like it doesn't matter, but it's my thought. It's like it's my baby, and I came up with this thought, and I have to share it to the world. And then somebody feels like the other way, and you feel like he's saying something against my baby, against my thought. Like fuck this guy. So it's like people are taking it too personally based on the opinions that they have had. And as a critic, I can tell you, opinions are fleeting beings. They should ideally stay the same. Like if they're staying the same, it means maybe you've not grown, maybe you've not evolved. So opinions keep changing. Like the same thing, how we react to something in 1995 when Dilwale came out is not exactly the way people are reacting now. It's because over time, people have managed to forgive some aspects of it, celebrate some aspects of it. So we have revised our opinions on Dilwale Dulhania in maybe like 25 years or so, right? We've never had the same opinion about that film. Suddenly, when we have to start talking about consent and all the woke issues, Dilwale is a highly problematic film then. Then it doesn't seem like a film we can celebrate. So it depends on what lens we are looking at to analyze films. If we are to start analyzing everything through one lens, just say, we found the woke lens today, I'm going to wear this woke lens and see what it looks like. Yeah, it's a bit problematic, huh? It's a bit underwhelming me right now. Like, dude, it's what the hell? You just found this one lens. That doesn't mean that you apply that one lens to everything that you're watching. You have to apply the lens that's needed to deconstruct a film, which is not happening because everyone has got only like one lens right now, and they're using that one lens to pretty much deconstruct all of cinema. It just shows how reductionist it's becoming these days, because most of the time these things are not worth discussing or dissecting through that lens, because it's not made for that lens. It's old evaluation. You're losing out on what it was actually meant for by just applying a different lens, That's the problem with it. Like it's a little half knowledge which people have started to assume one size fits all solutions that they are proposing, and like which means if it's a movie you can have only one opinion about it. Like why the hell just one opinion? It's a movie, you can have 100 opinions about it. You might like 50 things about it, you might dislike 50 things about it, provided that you are not reducing it to a binary thing of this movie sucks or this movie is great. And right now these are the things that I'm saying, and movies are never just sucks or great. There's so much in between these.
Yeah.
So
And talking about opinions, you might have come across this opinion, or I can say this is an inhibition which I personally feel is with the comfortability with the English language. Someone from this country wants to direct a movie in English. Was there any sense of inhibition that you felt, or this might help someone in the future also? Like, for example, if I write an article, I send it out to Bala, before I send it out to the world, saying like, I want your, right, whether it's good enough to go to the world. So did you ever feel this inhibition in your career?
No, in fact, I think it was the opposite. I wish I had the inhibitions, like it was mostly confidence that I'm like, this is how I speak. So this is how, let me write it. And like, I would be as opinionated I was even while writing it. But having said that, I'm choosing to express in a certain language. I'm choosing to express in English. Now, if I'm going to use big words, I'm going to reduce the size of the people who are going to understand it, right? So if I get caught up with like my own ability to like conjure up big words and then string them together with such flowery language and like have people say, wow, he writes so well, I'm not doing my job as a critic. My job as a critic is very simple. I need to make a case whether you need to watch this movie or not watch this movie in a way that most people will get, not in a way that very few people will get. And that's the problem I see with filmmaking and criticism. And one of the biggest decisions I made is to personally as a filmmaker is that I have decided that I'm not going to make any more English films because I'm just not happy with the kind of audience it gets. It's very small, which means that I have to learn what it takes. I have to learn a new language. Thankfully, I don't have to learn a new language. I learned it in second language. It's just that I don't have the spoken ability of it. So I started making a conscious habit over the last few years to start communicating and talking to people in Hindi, so that my Hindi seems more lived in and more relatable and more spoken and more colloquial and more today. And so it's a journey. It's like, we have to decide. It's a personal journey. Like different. If you are going to be happy with a small segment of that audience that you could have otherwise reached, and feel like that's enough, and it's cool. Like that's one way to go about it. You can totally say that my opinions are not for everyone. Only a few people are going to appreciate it, and hence I'm going to talk and engage them in the language that they understand. I don't feel like I need to dumb down or like, make sure like I'm making it for me and that kind of like, notion of an artist. Fine, go ahead, make it for yourself. But then you don't get to say, why don't people watch it? Because that's not the reason you made it, right? You made it for you. Remember, why should people watch it? You made it for you. When we asked you who you making it for, you said, I'm making it for myself. And people don't show up because they know you're making it for yourself. So unless you are showing some empathy towards people, unless you're not, like if you're condescending towards them, if you're saying that, people are stupid, and if that shows in the way you're telling a story, then people might not appreciate that sort of a tone. So tone is everything. How are you telling the story? What is the tone that you're using? Are you condescending towards them? Are you patronizing towards them? Are you like trying to tell them that you know everything and they don't know everything? So a lot of it is on the tone, and not just with storytelling, even with criticism. When you're reading reviews, who is he trying to communicate to, right? Like, who's this guy talking to? Like, if the words are too big, I'm like, okay, it's not for me. It's maybe like for my uncle who reads like this Hindu newspaper or like whatever like that. So for me, I was very conscious that I wanted people to get it. Like everybody should get what I'm trying to say. Otherwise, what's the point? As a paper, we have a limited circulation. And now we can't like say that, okay, in this circulation, we will appeal. I will write in a way that only these many people will get it because the other people are dumb. why am I presuming that they are stupid, right? I shouldn't presume they're stupid. I should communicate in a way that they will enjoy, which is why I probably used a lot of humor. But and humor where for films that was needed, not for like serious films and all that. Like, so I would review films on the basis of what they were. So you would never find one style of writing from my reviews, because every review, every film I would react to in a way, in a tone, in an emotion that appealed to me the most. So the negative bitchy ones were the easiest to write, because I would write them in like 20-30 minutes, but I've not enjoyed writing them. I've enjoyed the ones where I've actually got to rave about a film for say 3,000 words or whatever. So it depends on what the movie does to you. If the movie impacts you, you will put in those 3,000 words to express everything that you liked about it. If the movie doesn't work for you, then you'll just dismiss it off with jokes and whatever. But what's happened, I've also noticed, is that when you are, the negative reviews somehow get more appreciation and traction as well. Something about them makes people feel like, hey, this guy has really like kicked that guy's ass, like, I don't know what Schadenfreude it is, that they feel thrilled when like a big movie gets criticized. So I still don't know what is it about negative reviews that do it, but I've experienced the consequence of it. The consequence of it is everybody has started believing that if you have to review, if you're a critic, it means that you have to be mean and you have to be nasty. So earlier there would be 2 or 3 guys who would be the bad guys. Right now there are no good guys. It's all bad guys. Everybody's a mean, nasty, like, asshole is my brand. If you don't think I'm an asshole, I'm not a critic. That's how they really feel. Like, they want to be, there's a conscious attempt to seem like a douche. They want to be an asshole. That's the brand. If they don't feel like, so even if they feel like this, I haven't been much of an asshole today, let me see what I can tweet to seem like a bigger asshole than ever. That seems to be the brand for criticism today, which is really sad, because, the one thing about criticism is that you need to love the movies, man. You really need to love the movies. You can't make it look like, oh, today I had the worst day of my life. Like, dude, nobody held a gun to you to go watch this movie. I have never reviewed Harry Potter films for the simple reason that I don't like Harry Potter. And if I'm going to review a Harry Potter film without being a fan of Harry Potter, it would be not only be a great disservice to the fans, but also it's uninformed. It's based on my half knowledge and like my tendency to dismiss it as something which is not my cup of tea. But anyway, how useful is that opinion going to be? Right? It's not going to be useful at all. I could easily, it doesn't take me I can write a Harry Potter review in 15 minutes calling it the stoner film for kids. Right? I can say kids who watch Harry Potter are most likely to do drugs. Watch out, keep the drugs away from Harry Potter fans. I can say a lot of this stuff. It might be funny, it might be mean, but the point is that it won't be accurate to the franchise. It wouldn't be an informed take on it. It would be a shock value take on it. And right now, it's the contrarian and the shock value takes which are selling on Twitter. Like people are looking to sell those hot takes, those
takes. And which was one of the questions we had lined up for a later stage, like how the critics and readers and everyone have evolved over time, especially with the social media and everything. And it's a very good answer. And speaking of empathy towards audience and how you've evolved over time as a writer, let us go back in time to your first ever movie, that 4-letter word. How was the writing process? For that movie, because it took a long time, right, to complete that movie and put it out.
No, man, I have to be honest. I didn't know what I was doing back then. I was a kid. I was fresh out of college. I wanted to make a movie, and me and my friends decided that we were going to make a movie together. And that too because we met in the like once a year reunion kind of a thing. We said that, okay, we're going to write this movie over email, and then we just mailed each other drafts, and then over like some 1,000 emails or so, we wrote that movie. But that movie is when I started like understanding I downloaded a whole bunch of movies then, scripts, screenplays, just to see what the screenplay looks like. what the good screenplay looks like. What does an Oscar-winning screenplay read like?
Yeah.
That's how I discovered Cameron Crowe.
Yeah.
Because J. Maguire was one of the first scripts that I had downloaded. So for me, the first film is where I learned sort of how to write. But what I didn't learn from that film is where to stop. So it took me like a couple of attempts to get the writing right. Like the first time I made it was like overwritten. The second time I made it, it was okay, but I didn't have the resources to do it justice. Like in terms of production. So the first film is always going to be the one where you're going to mess up more than actually pull off something. So for all practical purposes, I think my first film should be purged of. There should be no indication that it got made, but that would be unfair to the cast and crew. So I have to say I learned a lot from it. If I'm a filmmaker, that's the movie that made me a filmmaker.
Yeah.
But I think Good Night, Good Morning is where I really found my sense of storytelling. I found my voice as a storyteller. And luckily I had like a good writer with me on board, who was able to give another perspective to the same story. So I think with the second film is where I found my sweet spot on like what is my voice, how do I want to tell the thing. So writing is just rewriting, man. You have to rewrite it till it works, and so just write it once, however bad it is, then read. So once you know how bad it is, you pick the faults and say, why is it not working? It's not working because I messed up here. Then you rewrite it. And then you say, okay, now what is working? Now what is not working? But you have to be honest to yourself about what is working, what is not working. The big problem I see with a lot of writers is that they fall in love with their ideas so much that that's the biggest curse. Because once you think you have a great idea from the beginning and you're not questioning it, chances are that you might have been delusional, like to assume that everybody would think it's a good idea. What is the chances of that?
That's very true.
So it helps a lot to question yourself. If you have assistants, make them ask you 100 questions about the script, or like ask them to find 100 points that they can criticize. It's an exercise. 100 reasons why the script sucks. Give them as an exercise. Let them, and they'll like 100. I'll give you 200. They'll go on. You've told them destroy it. So basically, that's the first step. Like you have to destroy the idea. Like take the idea and then destroy it. Attack it from all angles and see it, despite all the destruction that you have unleashed upon it, what still comes out and stands and says that, hey, I cannot be destroyed. Like that is the movie. That is the movie. That part that cannot be destroyed is the movie.
And does that also help with the creative block? When you attack a script, like go from a third person's perspective and look at it. Sometimes when you're stuck at a certain point, does that help looking at from an outsider's perspective to break that creative block?
Yeah. So usually when I'm stuck, I just take time off. I know instinctively that I'm too close to see what the problem is. So I need some sort of distance. Usually with distance, you get the solutions. And sometimes there's a very simple, it's worked for me. I go to bed thinking about the problem. I always wake up with the solution. Because then you're actually putting your subconscious at work. So even when you're sleeping, your mind is actually processing it, going through all the scenarios. And by the time you wake up, same reason why you wake up at 7 o'clock if you freak yourself out saying, I have to be up at 7 tomorrow. What if the alarm doesn't work? You'll wake up because you've employed your subconscious to wake you up. So it's the same thing. Like if you're stuck, outsource it to the subconscious. The subconscious is smarter. It will have solutions. 2 is it's slightly more textbook. If something is not working, it's because you've messed up somewhere else. It's textbook. So if your ending is not working, it's because you didn't set it up right. If your middle is not working, it's because you you have not figured out what the problem in the film is. You had a vague idea, you thought what the problem was, but you don't know what the problem is, which is why you're stuck in the middle. Because if you're very clear what the problem is, you will not be stuck in the middle. If you had set up everything in the first act, you will not have a problem in the third act because nothing's coming out of left field. Everything was moving organically towards this point.
Yeah.
So stories are quite organic that way. Like you give people some information, which you think you've given them some information when you haven't, is the biggest mistake people write as screenwriters, because in their head they have all the information. They just didn't put it down, right?
Yeah.
And if you not put it down there, then how are they supposed to know what you had in mind when you wrote that? So sometimes it's about making sure that all the information you have designed is translated to the script, which is why it makes sense to do away with the culture of narrating and actually have it
Written
on
down.
paper, because you can't trust the mind. The mind
Yes.
will forget some stuff. It's not possible. We're talking about 140 pages, man. Who can
Yes.
remember 140 pages? When you're making a movie, we're talking about 140 pages. Which human can rattle off 140 pages? Not even the writer. You can't. You can't keep track of, and when I'm saying 140 pages, we're talking about 14,000 ideas in there.
Yes.
How many of those 14,000 ideas are you actually going to remember? So which is why it's important to write down a movie. No matter how talented you are, please write it down, because unless it's on paper, it's never going to make it on screen. And if it's never going to make it on screen, that means it got left back in your head. So one piece of the puzzle which is not there, and you're wondering why didn't people get it? It's because you didn't put that piece of the puzzle into that thing for them to figure it out.
Another aspect of filmmaking, I just want to pick your mind, is on the withholding of a scene or withholding of the audience reaction. In fact, for example, when I saw Malayan Kunju, I felt that the music was very different. Malayan Kunju, Malayalam,
Fahad Fasil movie, where he gets trapped in
it's like the claustrophobic movie.
Yeah.
So
correct.
when I watched that movie in theater, I felt a little different from A.R. Rahman's work. Okay, like it felt very loud. The music felt very loud, but I do get it, because it did catch my attention. It did hold my attention. It did make me watch Fahad Fasil throughout the movie. So the withhold of the attention, I just want to connect it with side A and side B, where you added interesting editing pattern, where you had 3 frames, just almost like a Zoom meeting right away. On the top, on the left, you had the female and male reaction, and the bottom you were having the story running. So how the withholding of the reaction, how do you play about it? How was the editing pattern on side A and side B? Did you have this consciously in your mind?
It had everything to do with what is the story we were telling. We didn't use the thing. In fact, I didn't intend using split screen for side A, side B initially, because Good Night, Good Morning I'd already used the split screen thing. Then I'm sitting with my DOP Karthik Ganesh, and I'm telling him this whole thing, and then I'm asking him, so what do you think? How should we treat this? How do we get rid of the claustrophobia of a compartment? He's saying exactly like how you did in Good Night, Good Morning. You just do a split screen. I thought you knew that this is a split screen film. I said, no, I never looked at it as a split screen film. He's saying it's most obvious. This film is begging, screaming for split screen treatment, simply because for reasons of claustrophobia, right? Like if you're going to show them like 2 people in a box, going to get very claustrophobic, because you know the size of the box and you know how little space is left. But on the other hand, when you're actually going closer to them, then when you're going to a close-up, or when you're going to a mid-shot, when you're going closer to them, then you're leaving out so much of the coach. So the audience thinks that the coach is probably bigger.
Yes.
We have just chosen to go closer. So by omission of the frame, the audience starts believing that there is more space.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying? So we can actually have 2, when you have a split screen with 2 close-ups, it feels like there's so much space we have not gone into.
Used. Yeah.
It's not a claustrophobic coach, but the storytelling has chosen to keep it intimate. You get what I'm saying? So it was a way to make sure that it was not boring at one level. It's to make sure that we were able to look at his side and her side separately through different lenses. And also visually, I think a film needs to, the visual language of a film needs to tell the story, whether people are listening or not.
Yeah.
So if you look at Good Night, Good Morning, for example, it's split screen, but the guys are going a certain direction. They're going away from screen.
Yeah.
And he's walking this way. So, and in the midway in the film, they actually face to face with each other. And in the third act of the film, they actually kiss. facing each other.
Facing each other, yes.
So even if you're not paying attention to the dialogues, just the visuals of it should tell you a story. So that's the whole idea with Side A, Side B also. We said, okay, so how do we tell the story? These two people, they are on these sides. It's a couple, they're having a fight of some sort.
Yeah.
And in the course of it, I need to leave the audience with one frame where they're together before they're not going to be together. So the whole journey is to deserve that two of them in a frame. How do we bring the two of them in a frame in a way that we deserve the two of them in a frame? Because if I keep two of them in a frame in the beginning of the movie, what is the movie? There's no movie.
Yeah.
But if I show that he's saying this and she's saying this and he's saying this and she's saying this and then she's saying this and he's saying this and then she does this and this, then I'm playing with the language, right? Like, and so from here, I'm going there, I'm changing so it's like, the idea is like how, like the earth goes around the sun, right? So if they're there, we need to go around them. We need to go around them at this point. So we feel like we've completed a revolution around the coach. So the shot taking was designed from that perspective, that we'll go a full circle, but it'll finish with the two of them together. So it starts off with that sort of a grammar on like how we were capturing the world, which is just that box.
Yeah.
Initially, we wanted to do more cool shit with it, like, which we couldn't do. One of the things that we wanted to do was interview people who are on that train and talk to them about why are they taking their train journey?
Yeah.
What do they miss about train travel? Their first love, how do they look back at their first love? Did trains play a role in romance? And do our cities the bad thing? Like, so we wanted to have like 7-8 questions through which we could tell the story of the whole country, of people on that train. But unfortunately, we were super stressed trying to shoot a whole musical, like with all the songs on a train. In 44 hours, we shot like 10 songs and all that.
Wow.
So there was no way we could execute the second part of it. I had a second unit director. I told him to like watch out for the interviews. He came back saying, no, man, I don't think anyone was in a mood to talk. So we wouldn't have gotten anything out of it. So we never got to do that. I think that would have been a nice relief. And on hindsight, I think that would have been a nice relief
from the tension
between the songs. Between the songs, just to find out who are the other people on the train and what is the thing. But this is also okay. It works as an experiment.
Which I think led to our next question about music and musicals. Our country as well has talented musicians, singers everywhere. Like, are you a little bit disappointed that the genre of like musical movies are not explored more? And what is your favorite?
It's not like we don't do musicals. We have a different understanding of what musicals are. Like when my friend Love Ranjan saw this movie, Side A, Side B, he's saying, I don't know why you bother doing sync sound, shooting on a real train. He's saying the script is so good, all I would have done is just put up a set and had like 2 stars lip sync to the lyrics. This film would have made 100 crores. Because it's a universal story. All you had to do is keep it simple, make it in Hindi. Why were you so freaked out about lip sync and real world? Nobody cares. Nobody in the audience cares if you actually shot on a real train or if the audience is singing actually or not. They don't care. We as a culture do not care if this music is actually coming from Ranbir Kapoor's mouth. Because he can act. He looks so good. He doesn't need to sing over that, He can dance so well. What is the possibility that someone can sing so well, dance so well, look so good, act so well? It becomes a little difficult. So it's not like we don't do musicals. It's just that our understanding of musicals as a culture, not just as filmmakers, but as a culture is different. If people don't care, then how? Like Side A, Side B was watched by 214,000 people. It's free. It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
That's it. It's such a small, tiny audience. If you think about it, 214,000 people. It's not too much. It's a lot if you actually calculate and say, okay, but if it played in theaters, then the footfalls of it would have been much less. But because it's on YouTube, obviously it's got like 5-6 times more the audience that it could have got through a theater. Of course, there is a plus to it. But the minus of it is that is it. That is it. Like, it's available for free. More people should be watching it. But why don't they watch it? They don't watch it for a very simple reason, that it's an art movie. Art movies are a privilege of the rich of those who have the time to appreciate art. They don't have the tension of paying rent or like they don't have any of those stresses, that they can actually afford the luxury of saying, let's see what some brooding artist has done. And they'll watch it. But who are these
Yes,
people? Why are we making movies for these people?
exactly.
So it doesn't make any sense to me that I'm making movies for a bunch of like people who are like probably snooty. That's my
Yeah,
reading of it.
yeah,
Too
and
snooty and too snobbish, and they think
yeah,
most people are good. And we are making movies for those guys. Why?
yeah,
I could personally echo your thing with Uttama Villain. I personally felt Uttama Villain was a good movie. Like it had a lot of music. Music was telling a different story altogether. It had a separate tag, and it didn't have a good number of views on YouTube. If you just go there and see, like
Yeah.
no one speaks about Uttama Villain. That's my personal sadness
So
that I have.
YouTube does not have any FOMO factor. It's
yeah,
like what you already have. You're not interested. It's like that cheap booze that you stocked. If someone's
yeah,
giving Jack for the Jack Daniels, you're not going to touch the cheap booze which is there at home. It's like it's free booze there. Like so, and every day if someone's giving you new booze, like imported booze, like on Netflix they're giving you a show, and because now it's not just we're not competing with each other. India is not competing. Bollywood is not competing with Bollywood. Hindi movies are not competing with the South. It's the biggest myth that these movies are competing with each other. No,
yeah,
we're competing with the world. You
yeah,
need to
exactly.
be as good as a Marvel movie today to like get that kind of attention, right?
Yeah,
Otherwise, they'll go watch that Marvel movie. Unfortunate reality is that they'll watch a
true.
Marvel movie, or they'll watch a serial killer movie. They'll watch a Korean movie. They'll watch a
Drama. Yeah,
Japanese. They could watch anything. What they could watch like Bella Shaw. They could watch. They could watch anything. They could watch
yeah,
French, German, Swedish, Dutch, Russian, like so many languages. Why would they watch this? Because on OTT we are getting that range. Every day the problem is of choice. What do I watch today? So much to watch.
it's so true. And yeah, speaking of songs in our mainstream movies and everything, I mean, just now your friend Love Ranjan's movie came out. The songs were amazing. But in
Yeah.
general, the placement of these songs has always been a bit odd in our movies. Like, other than a few directors, I mean, many have struggled to place them at the right point because maybe take Maniratnam and Dil Se, he did a very good job, and because the songs really drove the story forward. Like, each song had 7 stages of love. Each song was about a stage of love, and one song was about all the stages of love. So why don't we have that consistency in every director? Like, they really struggle. Sometimes they are forced to place those songs. I mean, I guess the trend is changing, but it's still like a bit odd to see some of the songs just randomly crop out of nowhere.
Yeah, the thing is, I actually like the song culture we have in the movies, but I agree with you on the placement of it. The placement of it just is mostly comes through gut, or what the function of the song is in the course of the larger story,
Yeah.
right? So I see songs serving a purpose of relief, creating relief in the narrative, to condensing the philosophy of what they are experiencing poetically, and
Yes.
through like a suspension of disbelief during that point where they're able to do it. And now, because our culture of musical, where is it coming from? Where's our culture of musicals coming from? They're coming from the earliest movies made, right? And
Yes.
where did the earliest movies come from? They came from stage. And what was the
Yeah.
content of stage? They were mythological musicals, right? So
Yeah.
first they did the
Exactly.
mythologicals without the dialogue, and when dialogues happened, they said that unless you could sing, you can't be an actor. And then,
Yeah.
like Tyagaraja Bhagavatar becomes a superstar because he could sing. So back then there was a lot of focus on music being a part of the narrative. And also we are coming. The performance art is in India is basically coming from a tradition of the Navarasas, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's not the genre. Hollywood works on genre, which means that if they're talking about one feeling, that the whole thing is one feeling. But that's
Yeah.
also because of where it came from. Where did they come from? They came from Charlie Chaplin,
Yeah.
right? So they knew that laughter, that's what this movie is going to do. There's
Yeah.
just one rus there. Hasya Ras was all it was. And so then slowly musicals evolved when the thing happened. but then it was just for music. It was just so. And then when they were doing black and white, they said the black is more fascinating. Let's do noir films where we should focus only on the dark side of human beings. And so then it just became a celebration of the dark side, the noir films. You know, the film noir was entirely that. So Hollywood got into the genre system of telling stories, which means that per story, only one emotion, one dominant emotion that rules the story. That's so when they watch an RRR, their minds are blown. They're not able to slot it. They're like, this is an action movie. This is a romance. This is also a romance, but it's also a musical. But it's a VFX musical, and it's a war movie, and it's going into so many. It's a friendship story. It's a revolutionary tale. It's got this anti-colonial themes. It's got so many different aspects of it. They're like, how did they manage to pack everything in one movie? They've never seen. So like it is enough to impress the biggest movie directors around the world, whether it's James Cameron or Steven Spielberg. They want to know, how did he do it? They're struggling. Like there, if you fuse two genres, you're like a great guy, you know. Like
I wanted to ask, you actually led to that question on black and white. So how did you choose that you wanted to take it in black and white? Because when I was in movie, I felt very good seeing in black and white. Same way I felt when I saw Better Call Saul, when they were showing the present scenarios that were happening in Better Call. So they're showing black and white. That felt good. I didn't know how much I can express more, but it felt good. So how do directors decide, like?
No, to be honest, I had no intention to make that film in black and white. It was meant to be in color with Times Square, New York, and all of that. But we ran into trouble. Like the actors we had initially cast did not get along. Okay. So we knew we're not going to have that movie at all in the bag. And we were there for Christmas and New Year. So I thought, let me shoot everything that I need as a B-roll footage. Okay. And then figure out how to make it later. You know, because right now I don't think I can come back to the US ever again, because all my money is gone. Like I came here with all the personal loan, credit card loan and everything. I've come here, now there's no movie. So let me do what I can and go. So I took extensive helicopter shots. I took taxi shots. I took everything that I need so that I didn't have to come back to the US. Okay. Then I'm like, if I have to use this film, and it took me 18 months to pay off the debts and like top up the loan to be able to resume it. Wow. So 2008, 2009, December, we were there. In New York for 2 weeks, trying to make a movie and coming back only with B-roll footage. And then 16 months later, which is 2010 July is when we shot. Okay. Actually. Wow. With a different cast. So Seema Rahmani came on board 3 weeks before shoot. And so the thing is, between then in the 18 months, I knew that I'm making a black and white film, because I knew I was going to use this B-roll as how it was done in the 50s. So, so I was going to use reverse projection. I'm going to shoot it in Chennai with reverse projection. So then I'm like, so basically we're going to put an old world lens at a modern relationship. Okay. So we're going to put a 1950s black and white conversation kind of a lens. Because it's like romance, and we thought we'll make it look like an old school romance. So it has to be sentimental. So we thought jazz core, even the lyrics need to be Thief of My Heart and things like that, which feel like they belong to that thing. So once the treatment was decided that it's going to be black and white, it's going to be jazz, we just amped up the sentimentality and made people more vocal about love, because it needed to go with the black and white aesthetic.
Yeah, which was another question that we were about to ask, because they were more expressive throughout the movie.
Yeah. So for example, when Culture Vulture, I started off making it as a black and white film, but by the end, I was convinced that it's not a black and white film. Okay. So sometimes you have to be open-minded about it. You need to be open-minded about it, because the original path you might have chosen might not be the best path for the story. So you just have to be open about it and let the story dictate where it should go. Let the subject dictate where it should take you. That's what I've believed in, because sometimes the best laid plans that we have are not right for what you've come up with, right? Which is why the longer you spend writing a movie, the better it's likely to be, because you have revised it that many times.
Yes.
But if the shorter time you've spent with the script, which means that all those things that you forgot to check have probably
It's not
are
going to be a good movie.
yeah, they're going to become bigger problems when the film plays out. That missing detail will hurt.
Yes.
So it helps to just listen to the movie. It helps to be receptive to all opinions, all criticism, and do focus group screenings. When you're showing the movie to people, you get a clear idea of how much they're liking it, and you have to ask them questions about it. Like, and if they say it's good, that means like, okay, good doesn't, they didn't care for it. These are friends.
Yeah.
They said, but if they're spending time talking about it, then it moved them at some level.
Yeah.
And then you have to ask them, where did you feel like you were losing it? What should I change? You have to ask them, because however uninformed or unskilled they are, they might be able to tell you where they lost the plot.
Yeah. Yeah.
The explanation on why they lost the plot might be ridiculous because they are not film literate or critics. But where they lost it,
that will be very interesting to.
That is an important thing to acknowledge. You lost them there.
Yeah.
May not be for the reason that they are saying
are
true, for entirely different reasons. But so the first thing is to, if there is a problem, write down the problem, acknowledge the problem. I don't move on when I do, I show my films to 100 people before they're out. 100 people I trust, friends and extended circles. And I do these extensive interviews. I listen to all the feedback. I hold on to every bit of information on where they lost the film, because that's an important thing. If one person is lost, then it's possible that 10 more like that person would be lost. Yes. So it's important to address those issues, to the best of your ability before it's finally done. So that's why Culture Vulture has evolved. Like, it started off as a movie, now it's a series. But because I was listening to people, I was listening to all the feedback. I was telling them, listen, it's 2 hours long. I want to cut down. Tell me what to cut down. Tell me what to cut down. Tell me what to cut down. Everyone said there's nothing to cut down. In fact, I wish you just stay with some of the moments so that I had enough time to laugh before I got to the next moment. If you can do it, can you just slow it down, maybe like a series or something? And that was good feedback. Because once I made it into a series, I just realized that people had very different expectations from that experience. They were taking it 20 minutes at a time, and they were reacting to it so much more better than how they would react to like a 2-hour long film.
Yes.
Because now they're watching 20 minutes, 3 episodes of 20 minutes and 2 episodes of 30 minutes, and it's quick. It's over before they knew it.
Yeah.
They're reacting positively. They're seeing it in a whole new light. And it felt like this was the right way to finish, considering that we started with black and white and then going into this modern, hyper color stylistic thing. It felt like the most organic way to finish. Though that was not the idea, right? When I started out, I thought this is going to be a black and white film. I did all my mood boarding, costume selection based on the assumption that it's going to be black and white.
Now it's completely changed.
Yeah, and when people saw it, like Raja was the first one to watch it, he said, dude, why are you making this in black and white again? It's looking really good in color. Why? And then I said, no, that's what is intended. So I was dismissive in the beginning. And then slowly, as more people started asking me, why is this in black and white again? And so I had my reasons on why it's black and white, but every time I said those reasons out aloud, it didn't seem convincing to me.
Okay.
Because I could now see where they're coming from. And I don't want that distraction. I don't want that question. I don't want them to ask, why is this film in black and white? That's a thought I can do without. I don't want them asking, why is this film in black and white? When, why would, imagine if they're supposed to feel something, but suddenly they're like, but why is this in black and white? Wrong, you lost it. You can't have them thinking, why is it in black and white? So it evolved organically by just listening to people and problem solving. And the more you do problem solving, it becomes better storytelling. You're able to see what are the ideas which were left in your head, which never got translated to the screen. Yeah. Maybe it's, at the edit table, you might have lost a scene and hence lost some information. And hence you have to figure out if that information is really needed or not needed. Sometimes it was time. Sometimes you feel like you had these 5 inserts about what happened, how horrible the pandemic was. And then 5 movies come out and then you're saying, people know how horrible the pandemic was. We don't need those 5 visuals. 4, keep 1. Yeah. So sometimes it's a function of time. Storytelling is changes with time. It's a live thing. With the same story needs to be told differently for different times. we can't tell the same story forever,
Every
like, you
single
know,
time. Yeah.
the same tone forever. We have to customize it for the time that it's made for.
And just to add to that, yeah, I'm like a huge fan of Good Night, Good Morning. Like I've already tweeted to you once about it. Like for a conversationalist movie to hold the attention for so long, and the vibe of it was so lovely. Every time, I mean, I've gone back to watch it a few times, and every time I watched it, I've loved it. So yeah, thanks for making that movie.
Yeah, and one of my favorite scenes from that movie, I just want to add to Bala, is when Turiya and Moira are speaking, and Turiya talks about his past relationship, and Moira actually shows emotion. She's already driving towards the emotion to Tuira, and she starts showing some emotion to Tuira's past relationship. But Moira said she has respect for her, meaning Turiya's past lover. So
Yeah.
that perspective did. Like collaborating with Shilpa, bring that perspective into that, to know a female's emotion.
Not to that extent. Like honestly,
Yeah.
I believe I understand women to some level. Like yeah, she did polish out the actual ways and things like that. She did find a lot of dialogues that were not working and said, "This is in fact the best line from the film is by her. You make me feel like it's my birthday" is her line, which is what got her the co-writer credit in the first place. So she did help in like rewriting the dialogues quite a bit, but the core ideas were always there. Like what you're talking about, the fact that she feels this way about the thing, that was always there. Also because I was probably the older person in the who's in the writer room, and so I knew like there was some, and it was an older person thing to do. Like so, it was not about gender. It's just that she's older, you know. So I had to react like an older person, not like a man or a woman at that point of time. That grace comes with age.
Yes.
You know? So yeah, so a lot of the, so I didn't like a lot of the lines from Moira I had written. Similarly, a lot of lines for Turiya she had written. So it was not like we had taken gender roles and written the movie. That was not the case. We like she has her own strengths and I have my own strengths, and I think they just came together really well.
Yeah. And speaking of collaborations, in X past is present, a lot of people collaborated to put that movie out. And you directed one part of it, and Nalan was there, Tyagarajan and Kumar Raja was there. There was so many people. Like, how was it collaborating with a lot of mainstream people to put a project like that out?
It was meant to be a small indie experiment, which I pitched at the Goa project in Goa. Okay. It was meant to be all of us spend 1 or 2 days. We'll quickly make something. It was meant to be, it wasn't meant to be this thing with all these actors, stars, and like this big trailer hype, and like all that is, I think it's probably just bad marketing.
Yeah.
The marketing made it look like a film, which it wasn't, right? It wasn't this big film about 12 filmmakers come together for some magnum opus. It's not a magnum opus. It's an experimental indie, which was shot for $1,000 a segment. 80,000 rupees is what they were working with. You know, so you have, and that's important. It's important to tell people that this is an experiment made at $1,000 budgets. We don't know if it is any good. You watch and you tell us. That should have been the tone for the marketing thing. Not that, you know what, for the first time, 12 guys, like 11 guys, 12 heroines have come together for Mission Impossible 5. Like, what nonsense. It's not that movie. Secondly, the trailers were trying hard to sell sex, you know, and the film's not about the sex. It's not about that. And so that's the problem with marketing people around the world. They like, our job is to sell. We don't give a shit about the product. We care about selling. And that's a very dishonest approach, I feel, because people are smart. They know when you're lying to them. And with X, that was the thing, you know, like we had an idea in mind, which was an experiment that we said, let's see if we can build bridges between different kinds of Indian cinema.
Yes.
We did a writer's workshop for like over a weekend where all of us pitched our ideas and came to an agreement on like what is the play, what is the structure going to be, what are the topics we're going to explore, what are the themes we're going to explore. And then there was a lot of back and forth over email. Now, on hindsight, maybe it might have been good to not work with, say, 10, but like 5, because even with 5, there's a lot of directions. 10 is like Maybe
many
5
people.
days was too many to take the film to. But again, it was an experiment. So we just wanted to see, let's see. And it's the first time we're doing it. The second time, if I have to do it, I would do it with 5. Because that's the whole idea of the experiment. If you can build a bridge, how do you build this bridge between different kinds of Indian cinema? Because Indian cinema is quite fascinating and directors have their own like auteur style. Is it possible to fuse a few auteur styles together and make like a pastiche of Indian culture, like through the movies, So that was the whole experiment. Like we wanted to make pastiche cinema, pastiche hyperlinked cinema, which and serialized at that, and not like a episodic anthology which other people were making and continue to make. So we were like one of its kind, and I don't think anyone even tried it. Unfortunately, nobody tried it because of the polarizing reactions it got. People were 3,000 word long reviews of how much they hated the movie, as much as like so they were like, if 10 people watched it, 10 people had 10 different reactions, and that I think is the biggest success of the film.
And
because of
how
course,
is it?
like, our editor, Shrikar Prasad, our editor, had suggested that, and he's a national award-winning editor, so we take his feedback quite seriously. He said that why don't you lose these 3 segments and your film will be much tighter. And I told him, no, sir, that is just a very cheap thing to do because we all agreed that we're doing it together. Whether we win or fail, we need to do together. So if we're failing together, we fail together. Let's see what the best thing we can do. So he actually appreciated the fact that we were sticking our necks out for everyone and not because how commerce is, it's quite cutthroat. They'd be like, no, if it was a studio system, they would have just said, no, remove the parts that are not working and do it. But then what does it do to those 3 filmmakers? It just makes them feel like, I wouldn't want to be among the 3. Very simple. So you have to put yourself in the shoes of any filmmaker and see that what should you do? What is the right thing to do? So sometimes you do things in the spirit of what you're doing it. This is the spirit of collaboration. We were never going to throw 3 people under a bus. We were never going to do that, So I'm very proud of the fact that we never did, and whatever we did it together. And I'm pretty happy, I would say, with what we learned from it, because for me it felt like getting a sneak peek into the minds of 10 talented filmmakers, each of them who had like a unique way of thinking. I learned so much from everyone, including Nalan. I consider spending those 4 days on the sets of Nalan's film like education for life, because I saw his method, I saw his process, I saw how he was going about it. And being a producer, I was also like, I got a ringside view of the whole thing. I could see how I was able to develop it with them. That was a beautiful thing, because Kumar Raja had like pitched it and he said, listen, I know you said I can't do anything drastic to the main character, so my story idea gets disqualified right there because something crazy happens. So, but this is the only idea I have. Take it or leave it. This is what I have. If you still want me to come to Bombay, I'll come to Bombay for the writer's workshop. But this is what I have. And then he narrated it to me. And I was like, wow, this is so great, but it just ruins that one rule we said. Don't do anything drastic to this guy. And he did something terrible to him. So I'm like, then this can only come as the climax. If you're using it, it has to be the end. It can't be anywhere else. Like it's a story so powerful that it has no place anywhere else in the film but the ending. So then we're like, in the writer's room, our objective was very clear. We have to make the film deserve this ending. So then we worked it out. So everybody comes forward and then becomes a team player. So the idea was born because of Kumar Raja's idea. And then when it came to the writer room, I said, okay, there needs to be part 2 to the story where he has to go back and
and then
get her closure. Then you write that. So then he wrote that scene.
Wow. Okay.
So then the way Shrikar Prasad had cut it was Shrikar sir had cut it was that he kept it like a 14-minute long segment. We are watching it, it's not working for us, because it doesn't work for us because it's not written that way. It's the film structured very differently. So we had to cut it at a point where we had to come back to the story and then go back again. So we cut it into 3 parts, which Shrikar Prasad sir was not a fan of. He felt like the ending was too gimmicky, but we went with a gut because we felt that this film, being a jigsaw it is, we couldn't just get this 14 together. We had to cut his parts and make a puzzle out of that too.
Yeah.
So that was the only, but so it's a collaborative exercise where we have to go to what is the you go behind what is the idea behind the film. You have to listen to the film. If the film is telling you it's a jigsaw and this 14-minute chunk is not working by itself, it needs to be cut for the maximum impact.
You can.
So be it.
Yeah.
So on hindsight, I think we landed the film perfectly well. It was a good call for us to divide it into 3 parts. I think our editor Vijay Prabhakaran was right about that call, where he said that, please tell him that this is needed. He's not able to see it because this is his segment.
Yeah.
But this film needs some relief. It needs, because his story is too intense. We can't close in one go. We need that thing. We need some relief. He has to learn something. He has to go back. He has to get the answer. Wow. So now we
back again.
We learn that ending, right?
Yeah.
So which meant that I had to go shoot some stuff. So
okay.
All of us had the same budget, but I was shooting 45 minutes of the film. So
wow.
For the same 80,000 rupees, I was shooting 45 minutes of the movie, including all these things. So because I wanted everyone to feel like it's a group thing.
Collaborative effort. Yeah.
Collaborative. Yeah. But if I were to say that no, it's my film and you guys are all participating in it, the energies wouldn't have been as competitive. It wouldn't have been as fun.
Yes.
Because we did it together, irrespective of what our duration was. We worked with the same budgets, worked with the same inputs, and we still were able to come up with different kinds of cinemas. The biggest triumph of X, we learned so much from it. We're so proud of it. It was on Netflix for 6 years. It made it to some lists around the world of the world's sexiest films, which we have no idea about. Like, what? Sexiest films? Not what we were going for, but thank you. Because sexiest films are a compliment, because what were we working with?
Yeah.
We did not per person. With 80,000 rupees per person, if you made one of the world's top sexiest films, that's a good thing, I guess.
Yeah, it astonishes me actually that the budget was so low, because the product on screen was looking very grand. I mean, especially with the cinematography of it and how it was put together completely. It looked.
We had a great crew that worked only on the basis of the idea, not for the remuneration. There was no remuneration, right? What 80,000 budget to shoot? What remuneration are we talking
about? Nothing. Yeah.
Nobody got paid anything. But that's the only thing we wish was different. That we wish we had gotten paid, but none of us got paid, because the film's landing cost became 2.15 crores. And we were initially supposed to get back the money once the production cost was recovered, which is the 40 lakhs that we spent, despite everything. And now it was inflated to 2.15 crores, and that's like an impossible budget. We still don't know if it made that kind of money. We're never going to find out, because the person who was in charge is now no longer part in that position. So he's not even working for the same organization. So who's going to? So it's a big mess. Yeah. So we are we made a scene about it. We went to press and all that back then. We made some noise about it. But people do tend to side with the powerful. Nobody likes whistleblowers. If you're nobody likes a troublemaker. So I think I learned I was a troublemaker. I wish I was not a troublemaker. But it was not just me I was representing 10 other filmmakers. They were my responsibility. I had to be the bad guy. No other alternative.
Last 2 questions. I mean, speaking of collaborating and doing all these things, back when you were a journalist, you were interviewing a lot of people as well. How was it interviewing friends? I mean, you did this skit with Mr. C.S. Amudhan when Tamil Padam was coming out, and
he's not really like a friend or something. I know him professionally. From the Hindu, I knew him as a filmmaker. So I knew him before. I knew him. He was an ad filmmaker. So I always knew him as a professional first. So it's not like a friend. It's not like we just, because we met professionally and we got along so well, we just are friends.
Yeah.
But it's not the other way. It's not like he was my friend and then I promoted my friend or anything. That's not how it was.
But it was very organic.
I expected and became friends over the course of
And interviewing different people from different walks of life, how it was back then, and I guess the access is more a lot easier now compared to how it was previously.
Access to what, the stars and stuff.
Yeah, not only the stars, to everyone.
Stars are obviously pretty moody, I think. Stars take it very personally. If you don't like their film, they do take it very personally. I wouldn't blame them, because their whole life is on stake. Life is at stake. Crores of rupees are on stake. So I wouldn't blame them at all for taking it personally. because of our culture, we've had a culture of taking offense.
Yes.
We had a culture that could laugh at itself. It would have been very different. Like Hollywood's able to laugh at itself, right? Like, or so people thought till Will Smith slapped the hell out of Chris Rock last
Yeah.
year. But you never know. Like the culture of taking offense is always there. It's just waiting to surface. There's a Will Smith hidden in every star. There's a Will Smith hidden in every star who feels like Will was right. Chris Rock had it coming. Unfortunately, till we have stars who believe that Will Smith should not have hit Chris Rock, nothing is going to change. So unfortunately, because of that, critics are forced to suck up to directors just so that they have access, just so that they would get interviews. So, and you can tell if a certain critic has had anything to do with a certain filmmaker in any terms of collaboration, whether it's a writing collaboration, whether it's a book endorsement collaboration or book release or like any favor that is being done, that obviously his credibility is stained forever.
Yes.
Right? Like this guy came for your this guy helped you with that, and it just becomes quid pro quo, and you lose your credibility. Right? So I believe that you shouldn't be friends with filmmakers. I genuinely believe you shouldn't be friends with filmmakers. And if I'm friends with C.S. Amudhan, is because I can go hammer and tongs at him on Twitter, and he would be thick-skinned about it. And that's exactly what we're trying to say. The whole idea of demonstrating what we did with Amudhan and Venkat Prabhu was to say that develop some thick skin, guys. Like, what is this culture of taking offense? So I'm friends with the like-minded people who know that nobody is sacred. We can make jokes about anything because when we're talking about comedy, that's what it is. And both these guys are comedy filmmakers, which is why they were able to do that thing. Comedy is one thing that empowers us to be irreverent, and we need to be open to that comedic side of ourselves a lot more.
Yeah, and finally, you made Good Night, Good Morning, which is about two random strangers coming together and falling in love. And Side A, Side B was about two people who were in love, but just drifting away from love and breaking apart. So what is Culture Vulture going to be about?
Culture Vulture completes the whole thing. Culture Vulture is two people, two exes who are strangers again.
Oh, wow. It's actually very interesting.
So yeah, they meet each other after like years and years and years, like say years after they break up. And now they're strangers. They don't even know each other that much. Again, lifetime has passed. So it's different from, the Before Sunrise, Sunset, Midnight trilogy. That was one thing I was very conscious about the minute I started my first movie and it got compared to Before Sunrise.
Before Sunrise, yes.
I just decided that that's not a route I wanted to take. Like, I didn't want it to be the same couple. I wanted to have like three different couples in three different scenarios. If one is about a phone call, one is about a mixtape, and this is about movie. This is about retro films. This is like a modern day take on Casablanca. That's how I would see it.
Wow. Okay. Because I was about to quote Casablanca actually while we were talking about Good Night, Good Morning. So yeah.
This is Casablanca set in the age of social media.
It's lovely.
So with all the Zoom and everything, so it's come out really well. I think it's the best of the lot. Like personally, I feel like it's really well. It's my funniest film till date. Like
that's awesome.
Last to finish it up,
like usually I make films with two people or like three people, right? This time I made a film with like 20 people, and all of them are like funny. Wow. They're all funny people. I was just lucky to work with such talented actors. So the laughs are not coming from one person or two people. Like the laughs are coming from many people, and that's new for me as a filmmaker. I think I've pushed myself, and that's the direction I want to go into. Like I want to make films that are entertaining, that are comedic, so that no matter how complex the story is, we are able to tell it through the language of love and empathy and laughter.
Yeah.
And so I want to move to making films in like Hindi, so that I can reach out to the big audiences,
the mainstream audience, so to say.
So listen, and it's not even an original thought. In fact, who told me? Dibakar Banerjee told me when I was interviewing him during Shanghai. He said, Shanghai and Singham are the same film. He said Shanghai and Singham are the same film because they both are telling you that there's a rot in the system.
Yeah.
Okay. both about police officers who have to deal with the rot in the system and are proposing alternatives for the rot in the system. Both at some level are saying vigilantism is the kind of way to go about it.
Yeah. Oh
It is
my
just
God.
that
Yeah.
Shanghai is probably a lot more subtle about it, and Singham is in your face about it. And
Bombastic.
just
Yeah.
because I don't know to do what Rohit Shetty does not make me great.
Yeah.
Just because I've chosen to tell it in an art house format does not make me a better filmmaker than Rohit Shetty is.
Yeah.
In fact, it makes me less of a filmmaker than Rohit Shetty is, because Rohit Shetty is able to take the same story and take it to like a masses, whole bunch of
Yeah.
people that I'm not able to reach out to because I don't know how to. I wish I
Yes.
could do what he was doing, but I just don't know to do it. So what is the greater cinemas? Shanghai or Singham? If you ask Dibakar, he'll say Shanghai is preaching to the choir. These people already know. People already know that there's a rot in the system. It's not new information to them. Who should it reach? He's not been able to reach them. So that's the point. I learned this from Dibakar, such an honest filmmaker, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, we had a great interview. For us personally, I mean, it's a day that we would never forget. So, like, our podcast is nearing the 50th episode. Yeah, so I think this would be the 50th episode. So it's nice for us.
Congratulations on the half century. Glad I was able to be a part of it, and your whole video thing, video podcast.
Yes.
Good luck, guys. Just keep the love for the movies alive, because that's what's missing from criticism right now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for agreeing to do this. Yeah.
See you. Bye.
See you.
Bye.